Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. The IFBB NPC Jim Mannion's Pittsburgh Championships superstar guest posing is let out. Yeah, they did the guys first, which was kind of cool. You know, I guess Jim probably said, I don't want these guys sitting around all night waiting to get up on that stage and guest pose. We'll just put them out first. So they put the best first. And I got to tell you, it was super exciting. Shaun Clarida walked out first. He's the reigning 212 Olympia champ. He's won open shows. The guy is just massive. I don't think I've ever seen him this big before. He looked huge, and he was in great condition. You know, can he ever really win an open Olympia? Probably not, unfortunately, because he's just not big enough, and these guys are just outmassing him. And after all, bodybuilding is about building muscle. I mean, so shape and symmetry is great, you know, at the end of the day, and conditioning is really important, obviously, but all things equal, you know, when you have a guy who's just, you know, 50 pounds bigger than you, it's really hard to defeat him. But Clarida looked great. But, you know, I think the show, to me, the guest posing really was about Derek Lunsford. I mean, here's a guy who last year jumped into this guest posing at the last minute when Ramy didn't show up. He was still pretty much convinced he was going to do the 212 Olympia and defend his title. And at the last minute, he decided to do the open category. He wound up finishing second at last year's Olympia in the open. And he comes in here, you know, a lot of people talk about Samson Dauda winning the Arnold, being the #1 contender, but it really is Derek Lunsford. I mean, Derek, it was a couple points off beating Hadi Choopan and winning the Mr. Olympia last year. I think Derek's better this year. He's bigger. I think that he's the guy to beat. To me, in this lineup, he was the most impressive in terms of everything included. Size, symmetry, and it's, you know, everyone really showed up in pretty good shape. I got to tell you, no one was really out of shape. We always usually see a couple guys that were who are terrible. Everyone was in good, really good guest posing shape, and I think that's because this guest posing has become almost like an annual event where people know they're going to be assessed according to how well people think they're going to do at the Olympia, and the judges are looking at them. And so they almost diet for this little guest posing and come in the best they can, given the fact that they're in the off season and they don't want to jeopardize, putting on mass. But no one was sloppy on stage. I thought Derek was the most impressive. Nick Walker was huge, as expected. I don't even think he needs to get any bigger, to be honest with you. I think he just needs to keep refining. And as time passes, his physique is just going to get a more mature look. He's super impressive. He's a top 3 Olympia guy for the next, 10 years maybe, if he wants it. Always impressive. I've never seen the guy out of shape. I've never seen the guy not be impressive and not hold his own against everyone he stands next to. And that's because the guy's a monster. And let's face it, he is the mutant. Ramy, I got to, take my hat off to him. He looks great. I mean, as good as Ramy's going to look. I mean, he looked as good as he did at the Arnold Classic. I mean, he's a little fuller and rounder. He's not quite as hard, but I thought Ramy looked really good. And I think that, can he win the Olympia again? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to beat Derek Lunsford. I don't think he's going to beat Samson Dauda, because I think the judges are just holding these guys to a higher standard in terms of shape, symmetry, structure. And I think Ramy structurally is more in the Nick Walker category, and Nick is more complete than Ramy. Nick's got a better back than him. I got news for you. Ramy's wide, but he doesn't have those lower lat insertions, and that hurts him on stage. And I think that's where Nick Walker beats him. And if he can't beat Nick Walker, he's not going to beat the top 2 guys, Derek Lunsford and Hadi Choopan. So Ramy, I'm glad he's here. I love to see him. He's a freak show of freaks. He should do a lot more guest posings because he's super popular, and the fans love to see that mass. But will Ramy move up in the Olympia rankings? Maybe a place. I don't see him any higher than 4th this year unless people come really out of shape. But it's nice to see Ramy in Pittsburgh. Hunter Labrada was super impressive. Not only was he big and full and round, but he was hard too. And he had some great tan on. All these guys got tanned up. It was very professional looking, I got to tell you. And Labrada holds his own because he's got symmetry and he's got size. So in an off-season guest posing, comparison, he really holds his own against all these guys because he's got both. He's got the size and the structure, and he's got the height, and so he matches up really well against everyone. When all things equal, when everyone's in shape and they're on the Olympia stage, I think he still has some deficits that he needs to add more size, to take care of. But he's still young. He's got time, and he's going to keep improving. But I think Labrada brings a really good look. Good move on his part to come to this guest posing. I'm impressed. I think he's going to be move back into the top 5 this coming year based on what I'm seeing on stage. Samson Dauda, coming off that Arnold Classic win, probably not the least hard, probably the guy who's probably the smoothest of all the guys, and he's not smooth by any means, don't get me wrong. But you could tell this guy's trying to put size on. He's bigger, he's rounder, he's fuller. He's absolutely working on his weaknesses, which is to bring that back up and then obviously dial in that conditioning better for the Olympia. He's the kind of guy that won't be as impressive when he's not in the best shape of his life, except when he stands from the front, because his silhouette is unbelievable. But, when he turns around, you're going to see his conditioning is not quite as good as some of these other guys, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. Right now, it doesn't matter. He showed up as the Arnold Classic champ. He's probably 320 plus pounds. I don't know what his weight was, but he looks huge. And he's doing what he needs to do for the Olympia, which is to add more mass. And I know it sounds crazy because he's already 320 pounds, but the guy's over, he's, 6'2"? He needs that size to fill out his frame, and he's got a big structure. And he can hold probably another 15, 20 pounds. I know it sounds insane, but he can hold it and it won't ruin his physique. That's a rarity, and that's because he's got a big structure and he's tall. So I think Samson brought what he had to bring to the stage. And, overall, when you evaluate these guys, like I said, I just felt that Derek Lunsford, it was the most impressive to me. Even though he wasn't the biggest and he wasn't the hardest, I thought that he was the most impressive structurally. Just the way his muscle fills out his frame. He doesn't have gaps anywhere. He's really missing no body parts, this guy. So if he comes in ultra sliced like he was at the last Olympia, I say he gives, not only does he give Hadi, who's the reigning champ, a run for his money, I don't think any of these guys are going to touch him. But until the Olympia comes and until he shows up in the best shape of his life on that stage, it's all speculation. All right, guys. Once again, the Pittsburgh Championships has really lived up to its billing. It's kind of like the mini Olympia pose down before the Olympia, 6 months before, and we're all excited about who's going to be up on that stage. And I think that I'm so glad that Jim does this every year, and I'm glad that they're live streaming now. I bought the live stream just to watch the guest posing, and it was spectacular, as you can see. So congratulations to all the guys, and good luck on your Olympia prep over the next 6 months. Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle News Update.